pouring out of the hive. Look at all them bees. Well, hello, everybody. Hope y'all are doing well tonight. Welcome to another Thursday night bee chat. So tonight we have a special guest, Mr. Bryan Zavada from way out west. I got him on here. We're going to be talking about marketing tonight, and he was one of the first ones that popped in my head when I thought of that, because I know of he does a lot of different things, a lot of stuff different than what I do. So I thought it would be a good contrast. So how you doing, Bryan? Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Keith. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. I'm excited to be here tonight. I know I've got a lot to learn from you. We do things very differently, so it'll be interesting to hear kind of our different perspectives on how we made our decisions to kind of provide some information to folks out there. I get started this weekend. Saturday is our first farmers market, and then Sunday is our second one. We do the same folks run these two markets from the beginning of May till the end of October, and our inaugural weekend is this weekend. And then you said you get started next Wednesday. Is that right?
Yeah, Wednesday is my first market, Wednesday afternoon, and then that's the market in a county down from us. Our local market starts up then the following Tuesday. So yeah.
Okay.
So I'll be doing 3 markets a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday. So yeah, it'll kick in gear starting Wednesday. So but we're ready. I gotta drag all my props and stuff out and blow the dust off and make sure I've got everything ready, and we'll be good to go. So I'm sure. Go ahead.
I imagine our markets are fairly different just because our geography is fairly different. I live in the Denver area. I live in Lakewood, Colorado, and our Saturday market is in the heart of Denver, maybe a mile from the capital. So it's definitely not downtown Denver, but central Denver for sure. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Tom.
On Sunday, we go up to Lafayette. That's much more of like a suburban neighborhood, but I would say kind of like an upper middle class neighborhood. And then we're going back to another farmer's market that we did on Sundays, which is in a Denver neighborhood as well, with, I would say, kind of like a yuppie community. So we've got definitely the big city money at our markets that we're going to, a high population of people that we have at our markets, and a very food-based market that we go to, not very crafty.
Right.
And we chose those markets specifically because we wanted to get involved with that food culture and just the local food culture. But I get a sense that your markets are probably a little bit more rural.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yadkinville is not quite the size the Denver metropolitan area is.
Yeah,
our the entire county has something less than 40,000 people. The little town, the county seat, Yadkinville, it's around 2,500 people, something like that. So the other market I go to down in Davie County is a little bigger, a little over 40,000 people. I think Moxville's maybe around 5,000, but yeah, a lot smaller markets than what you're dealing with. A lot fewer people, a lot fewer vendors. So, but yeah, that was one of the questions that I had was how do you go about choosing your markets, which you already touched on that a little bit. You wanted to be associated with the food vendors more so than the craft vendors.
Yeah, but it's been more than that too. It's been, as we started on the scene, we weren't really comfortable applying to a farmer's market because a lot of the really nice ones, they wanted the year-long commitment, and we just didn't have the product to really provide to a year-long commitment. So we would do little pop-up events here and there that weren't that every week commitment. So we would find good organizers and not as good organizers. So we learned really quickly that it wasn't just about a couple things make a good place to sell honey. One is the organizers of the event. Two is the customers that the organizers attract to that event. And three is the other vendors around you that create that culture of that event or that market. And we found folks that were very food based. Denver's becoming kind of like a foodie town more than it was when I moved there. And they really wanted to highlight local food makers, the local farmers, that kind of stuff. And we saw them as not just creating a really cool environment for our product, but creating a really good food culture that we could tap into. Now, I know, Tom, you guys live in a place almost in between where you can kind of go out to the rural areas and hit some more rural communities, but you also live close enough to a metropolitan area that you can go to some bigger events where you'll get a different population of people there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so we've tried to kind of find the people we want to work with and the places we want to sell honey. We've had a couple of events where like they brought a lot of customers, but I didn't feel like I was working with the people who were organizing the event. It felt like I was working for them. And that wasn't really what I was looking for. I was looking for more of a relationship. So there have been some really good markets that we've left or applied for or chosen not to apply for just because of that vibe from the people who organize it isn't quite what we're looking for too.
Right. But Tom,
so we drive by a farmer's market that's like a half a mile from our house every Saturday to go to our farmer's market on Saturday, just because it's a way better market.
See, that's something I don't have the pleasure of doing, because our number of markets is obviously we have one. There's some in adjoining counties that I can go to, but as far as local, I've just got the one market. So yeah, that limits me there too. Not just the population. Well, the population limits the number of markets, but you obviously have a lot more choices. I'm assuming it's kind of the same for you, right, Tom? You probably have lots of as he walks off the screen. Good timing.
I would even say in our area, we have like a super saturation of events where it's like a brewery is going to do an event, a little shop is going to do an event, where there's so many events going on at a nice summer weekend where it almost feels like there's too many.
Yeah, no,
I bet that's not what you. Yeah, you don't have that problem.
The only time you ever run into that is when you get into some festivals and there's like the July 4th weekend.
Yeah.
When there's stuff going on uptown at the same time, there's stuff going on at the market that can that can hurt us a little bit, because where the market's located, it's not really, there's not a lot of traffic that goes by the market. You got to be going to the market to see it. So we don't, like you say, not lots of markets going on. That's the only thing that messes up is festivals. But that's just but the festivals, that's just another place we can set up and sell, if the timing works out right. So
do you do
how
many
does it work in your area, Tom? Do you have a large choice of markets in your areas that you have to pick and choose what you think fits the best?
Yeah, that's probably a good way to describe it. And when Melissa and I first started with markets, Melissa, how long ago would you say it was? 3 years ago? 4?
Yeah, probably 3.
I want to say this might be our 4th season, I'm thinking. Anyway, there was a handful that we had gone to. And, when you first start selling at markets, there's a lot of uncertainty about a lot of things, right? Pricing, how you stage stuff, what markets are good, all sorts of things that you really have to figure out. Which I don't know. I think Melissa and I are pretty good at doing. We like to carve our own paths and carve our own way and such. And then you have to determine what the value of your time is. And I think that's extremely important. I don't usually tell people what to sell their honey for, but what I try to tell them for is, and Bryan and myself and Melissa have had many, many conversations in regards to marketing, all sorts of products, and every aspect of what we're talking about tonight, I guarantee we've had a conversation about. And one of the things that we've kind of talked about, and I think this was Bryan's words, you're kind of I remember if you said like an artisanal type product or honey. There was a word that you used that was very specific, I want to say. But anyway, the point of what I'm trying to make here is that don't discount your time. Even if it's a hobby, it still has value, because let's be honest with each other. The products that we're selling, particularly talking about honey, they'll sustain life on their own for a period of time that no other food source out there will do. So I don't think any of us, even if it's a hobby, I've never believed in working my way to the bottom, if that makes sense. Now that doesn't mean you have to go out there and charge an arm and a leg, but there is a reasonable number. And again, everybody's market might determine something a little bit different. And there's a lot of different parameters there, but Melissa and I have chose to kind of run probably higher middle of the road pricing, I would say, for our area and such, but something that made sense as far as what the costs were that we had. And this doesn't have to be just for somebody to quote unquote make money, but in my opinion, this doesn't have to cost you anything either. These colonies, if you have a good queen, healthy colony, and I would even say that the area may not matter, because for crying out loud, I was in Denver, Colorado, not more than 3-4 weeks ago. Brown as can be out there, just like what Bryan has in his background right there. These bees are bringing in copious amounts of nectar. Okay. So I'm just saying, bees will show you where there's a will, there's a way. But yeah, so there are, kind of getting back to the original question, there are, events that we've gone to before, and I'm like, nope, not doing that again. And Melissa's like, well, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, it's sometimes you might give something a second chance, but I'm like, I want my time to count for something. And I just am not willing to take maybe what little bit we made, So there's a lot of different things that might come into play. Bryan and I have talked about this many of times. Sometimes you might do a market and you're like, yeah, I really didn't make what I wanted, what I should have made, and probably wasn't a quote unquote successful market, but we got brand recognition. So there's value in that. Definitely got your name out there a little bit more in any ways. Maybe you gained a new bee yard out of it, or a new contact in some form or fashion that's going to pay dividends in different ways. So it's not always just about selling the honey. There's other areas that you can draw a lot of benefit to. And that's one thing that we've tried to see value in as well. But so there's a handful that we kind of stick with that tend to do pretty well. And you kind of learn your niche, I think.
Yeah. Now on the pricing, let's talk about that a little bit. When you first jump into this, you can obviously go to Walmart and look at the shelves, or go to the grocery store and look at the shelves. You can go to local produce stands and look at the shelves. But you have to be so careful doing that, because a lot of the honey you're looking at it's not made like your honey is. It's made by a corporation somewhere. It's some offshore honey that somebody in the U.S. put in a jar. And they can do that a whole lot cheaper than what we're willing to take for our product. So I use the Bee Culture magazine has a nice little nationwide survey that they do in there for honey prices. That I guess that was probably the first place I looked at to kind of get some idea, because they've got it broke down: retail, wholesale, all the different 1 pound, 2 pound, 3 pounds, quarts, pints, case prices, gallon buckets, 5-gallon buckets. They've got it broke down in a lot of different pieces that you can kind of get some idea, at least of a starting place. And then you go from there. But then you talk to other people on the internet, or Facebook, or wherever, and you're asking X amount for a quart of honey, and they're asking almost twice that much for a quart of honey where they're at. But then you find out they're in a large metropolitan area, an affluent area. They're not out in the country. So it's just like beekeeping. Your pricing is local also. I can't have the same prices probably that you and Bryan can pull in some of the bigger cities. A lot of my customers are older folks, and they're at the market buying fruits and vegetables, and they don't have a lot of money to spend on honey. So that's just the market that I'm in, and it works fine. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not complaining at all. So what do y'all think about that as far as the pricing piece of it? You think that's a very local item also?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess, you did a post recently, Keith, where you talked about you're going back to the farmer's market. You had all your different size jars and your different prices for jars, right?
Right.
And I looked at that and I thought to myself, wow, that I have a different price category than you for sure. And I definitely thought to myself, part of it's because of region. But I wonder, like, I can look at your prices and say they're low, but that doesn't really matter. What about the other beekeeper at your market? Does he look at or she look at your prices and think they're low? That for me is the real gauge, that local. And the same thing with the bee culture, those charts in the magazine, that's so for me national that it doesn't really connect to me. So as I started thinking about pricing and jars and packaging and all that stuff, I went to like the Whole Foods store and I stood there in the honey section and I thought to myself, why does that one cost more than that one? And what can I do to get my honey up on that shelf? Not that I want it to be the most expensive honey there, but I want, and Tom, maybe it was like a specialty food product I was talking about, not a staple food product. Honey is something that's for sure an option in people's diet. And it's not something people need all the time. So I definitely try to emphasize the specialness that honey is as a food product, partially by my price point. But I don't want to, I also know that I can't make a price that's going to make every customer happy. There's going to be a percentage that's going to walk away and say that's too expensive for me. And I've got to be okay with that. I can't take it personally. What I value something at can't always be the same thing that someone else values something at. And especially for me, knowing what goes into putting that honey into that jar, all the work of overwintering that colony, splitting them back so they don't swarm, managing those honey supers, doing all your mite treatments, pulling that honey, getting it in a jar. Have you ever done that? You've gotten it all to that point, and then you go to the market and a case falls out of your truck and you bust open jars right there, and you're like, all the work that it took me to get that honey to the market, and I screwed it up right there. You know what I mean? You got to remember how special honey is. It really is a special product, and I think your price should demonstrate that, but you have to be reasonable with your customer base, knowing what they can buy, what they can't buy, and just what's reasonable for them.
Maybe you could use that honey that dropped out of the back and use that and market that to the cheap customer that wants a discount. Be like, well, we have some glass filled floor honey. Like.
Some gently used honey.
It's a little crystallized.
That's right. But, you could say it's a rock bottom price, after you rake it up off the asphalt pavement, I don't know. You got to be inventive and very creative with your, the way you market something.
Let's see. Let me take a little break right here and thank you everybody over in the chat for coming tonight. Obviously you can see we're kind of talking about marketing tonight. Trying to see some of the ideas that we've got on how to do that based on location, pricing. I'll get into some other stuff here, but if y'all got any questions for these two experts I've got here, put your question in caps so it'll stick out, and I'll star it and we'll pop it up here in a little bit. But I'm sure we'll try our best to stay on topic tonight. But I think I titled this thing "This Little Piggy Went to the Market," and the piggy being me. That was something I really wasn't planning on doing. I mean, this will be my fourth year at the market. Prior to that, I didn't make enough honey to worry about it. The first year I made a little bit. I was able to sell most of it just on Facebook, just letting friends and family know I had honey, and we'd arrange some pickups. But then I think that year I made maybe close to 50 gallons, something like that, which was still a whole lot. I'd never made anything like that before. Sure. And I might actually hit a few markets at the end of the season, but I didn't do the whole season. Then the next year I did 100 gallons, and I definitely went to the markets. And then I did 200 gallons, a little over 200 gallons last year. So that required a whole lot of markets and some other stuff. So yes, just depending on, obviously how much honey you make as to how serious your marketing needs to be. What ends that you'll need to go to. And me and Bryan talked about it a little bit before the chat started, the idea of running out of honey. Do you want to have honey year round, or do you want to run out? I usually run out every year. This year I bought some back from a fella that I sold some to, just so I had some for late fall, because I had so many people asking for it. But I usually do run out.
So that's my question for you, Keith. People say it all the time. People say it's bad for business. You're going to lose customers if you run out of honey. They're going to go find another beekeeper, and you're going to lose that loyal customer base. That hasn't been your experience, though, has it? I haven't seen that. Like you say, they're either going to find another beekeeper, or they're going to go to Walmart and buy honey. And my honey is a lot better than what you can get at Walmart, so they can't wait until I come back with some honey in the spring. Yeah. So, as far as finding another beekeeper, I mean, sure, there's other guys around here making honey, no doubt about that. But I just haven't seen it. I haven't seen it being a terrible thing.
One other thing I think it might be very beneficial, and everybody knows that. Anybody that's ever met me before, especially face-to-face, understands that I like to have conversations, right? I genuinely love people. And so they sometimes wear on me a little bit, right? But that can happen to everybody. But the point I'm trying to make here is building contacts, even with other beekeepers in your area, people that you might consider competition. Be friendly with them. I've always said this, and the same thing goes for me whenever it's with my landscaping and such. There are several guys in my area that we are all in direct competition with. We are all on friendly terms. We are all cordial with one another. Occasionally we pass work to one another back and forth, because sometimes there's a fit that may not be good for me, that's good for them. And I would say potentially the same thing can be true for selling honey. If, say, Keith only produces 1,000 pounds a year, Bryan produces 5,000 pounds a year, and a guy comes and says, hey, I want to buy 800 pounds. And you're like, I'd love to sell you this 800 pounds at whatever my retail pricing is. But the reality of it is right now, I just don't have enough. And you can say, but I have a very close trusted friend that I can probably refer you to, that I know for a fact how he handles his bees, how he processes his honey, and it's great local honey. And I think that he could probably help you out. And then you say, hey, Bryan, I have this one customer, I want to kind of keep him as a customer normally, but I can't handle this excess, amount that they're looking to get right now. And so maybe you can take care of them right now. We've actually done that before. So there's a gentleman in my area that being a little loud over there.
Well, I'm selling
distracting. Melissa's selling honey right now.
Tom's telling us how to do it. Melissa's doing it.
Right. Yeah. I just do this, Brian. I'm all lip service. I'm not the doer. I'm the talker, right? But so we've actually done that before. Like with
Hey, Melissa.
Jim Masucci had called and said, "Hey, can anybody provide this guy, one of my customers, with X amount of honey?" Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "Yep, can cover it." He goes, "I kind of want to keep him as a customer." And I'm like, "Absolutely. Whenever you come back in service, they're all yours. I will gladly step back and step aside." And so we've done that before. So keep that in mind. Find somebody that you kind of know, trust, somebody you feel good about, and somebody that maybe you trust how they handle their honey. It's somebody that you want to, somebody like an extension of you that you might be able to help them out. And in return, by you providing a good source, that reflects positively on you. Now, I'd also say, as a very close second, be cautious of people too that you may not trust, because again, I never refer somebody that I don't know, I don't see their work, haven't worked with, and I don't trust. Even if it was family, I would not do it. It's a thing that I set forth years ago that I wouldn't do. And so again, get to know people, network, understand things. And if, something pops up, maybe they can help you out in a way by taking care of a customer, and then, you can get them back, or however that seems to work out. But we've definitely done that many of times before. And so I'm a huge proponent of networking with other people.
Tom, I make a distinction. Well, first of all, there's vendors that, like you said, are vendors that you want to make relationships with, and vendors that you want to be careful of, for sure, because of their practices. But when I look at other people selling honey at markets or events, I make the distinction first in my brain: are they the beekeeper, or are they a honey seller? And I definitely treat beekeepers a little bit differently than the honey seller, just because I want to see them do well in a way that's different than the other person, because I want other good beekeepers out there and contributing to the community in a really positive way. But I'll even say that it's really important to make strong connections with vendors that aren't necessarily beekeepers. Other vendors can help you out when your tent blows over, or you're having problems unloading your truck. When you're friends with the people around you and you help them out, they're going to help you out. It could lead to a new yard, because farmer has property, and it leads to a conversation where you end up getting a new yard, putting bees on their property. My neighbor is a dairy farmer, and in his prior life, he was a veterinarian. So as I was talking about the feed directive and how you have to get a prescription to get antibiotics for things like EFB, he's like, "Hey, Brian, remember, I'm a vet. I can write that for you." And I was like, "That's right. Holy cow. There you go." So, I mean, a lot of vendors live in not necessarily the beekeeping world, but in an adjacent community to beekeeping that could in some way kind of provide some benefits to you. And these people know the grind. They know the grind that we're doing. So they get the one guy calls it the gypsy lifestyle. He's a pig farmer and he sells pork, but he calls it the vendor gypsy lifestyles. We're all a bunch of gypsies. All right. Okay. I get where you're coming from. It's definitely a non-structured, not 9 to 5 world, for sure. And I think that's kind of what he's trying to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, let's see right here. Kathy brought up a good point. Stand there and talk, have samples for folks to taste, have different sizes to fit everyone's prices. That first piece there, stand there and talk. I have found that to be very important, and whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
I kid sometimes on these chats that the hardest part of the market is I have to stand there and be nice for 3 hours, but that's kind of the truth and not the truth, but it's part of it. You're answering the same questions over and over and over. You're just giving the same stories about bees over and over and over. Hearing the same myths about bees and honey, and I tell folks the customer is always right, no matter what they say, how goofy it is, because I hear a lot of customers come up and tell me that they like honey because it fixes X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, if that fixes it for you, then I've got what you need. So,
yeah, I want to stand there and talk is really important as well. And that's part of your marketing that can set you out from the honey vendor. You're the beekeeper. They want to come up and tell you a beekeeping story, whether it's the time the swarm came into their neighbor's tree, or when they had comb honey with their grandparents when they were little. They want to tell you that story of connection that they have to beekeeping. And I think that's really important, that you stand there and listen to them, even though it's the same story over and over again, told by a different person. You know, you get the so how are the bees doing question. I hear they're struggling. How are they doing? I get that one all the time as well. It's your job in a way to be an ambassador of honeybees. Sometimes you just have to stand there and listen to the guy talk that comes. We had one guy that came back to our market every week, and he lived in the neighborhood, and he had a backyard garden, and he would try to bring his vegetables and trade with all the vendors, the vegetables that he grew with the vendors' food. And he would spend like 45 minutes in your booth if you'd let him. And at one point you're like, all right, you got to move on here, buddy. I don't want your squash.
Yeah. Yeah, you've always got that one that likes to hang around, but yeah, you know, that's the part. You know, we talked earlier. By the end of the season, I'm ready for it to end, but then probably a month after it ends, I'm like, well, dang, I kind of miss it. You know, the social piece of it, talking to folks, and I think people can see when you're talking about bees and you got a twinkle in your eye, you know, and you're enthused about it.
That's right.
And you'll talk their ear off if you're not real busy at the time. You know they might be the one trying to get away from you.
Yeah. We also, now you do markets by yourself. Your wife doesn't come with you. Is that right? Now, a lot of the times Jen and I are doing it together. I'll go early. I'll set up, you know, Jen will roll in like a half an hour after the market starts. She's amazing at selling. So she does great. She's an awesome salesperson. But we forget where I was going with this. Oh, no, we have this agreement that if a beekeeper comes and starts talking bees with me, I have to leave the tent and go out, because I don't want to be taking up that space talking bees where she could be working with the customer. So I've learned I've just got to take the conversation out of the booth so that she can interact with customers. But we've had that as well. Yeah.
Melissa's yelled at me about that before, Brian.
What?
Yeah. Get out of the way. You're getting in the way of my sales. And I mean, she's right in a way, but that's part of what you're doing at the market, is you're connecting with the non-beekeeper community as well as connecting with the beekeeper community. For the month of May, we're going to have a little sign up that says 5-frame nukes are available. And I bet we'll sell a couple from the farmer's market, just because that'll be up there. And I'll tell you what, that's one of the things that's going to make me stand out from the other person that's just selling honey, right? Are you the beekeeper? Yeah. You want to buy some bees?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I can sell you a mated queen. I can sell you a nuke. I have another vendor who has, I forget what the disease is, but it's Lyme's disease. She's taking the bee sting therapy for Lyme's disease. So she started buying bees from me for her apitherapy treatment. But those are the kind of things that you've got to stand out from other competitors if you've got that part of your market. And I'm not sure, Keith, do you have other honey sellers at your market?
I'm going to have more of that this year than I had last year. So so that'll be something I'm dealing with more so than I have in the past. But I agree with you about, you know, I've always got some business cards there on the table. And when people come up and say, I thought, you know, me and my husband have been thinking about getting bees someday, you know, how do we go about doing that? You know, and I always give them the get education before you spend a dime on bees or equipment, you know, the usual thing that they should be told. And then hand them a card and say, and then after you get beekeeping for dummies, or join a local club, or join our local Yadkin County beekeepers, whatever. If you're still interested in it, give me a call and we'll talk about it. So I think that means a lot to folks. Now, 99% of them I never hear from, but still they know you're willing. You're a beekeeper.
Yeah.
You're willing to throw it out there and help them. Hey, Melissa.
They're muted.
He's purposely muting me.
Targeted.
So, at our table, I have these flyers up about nukes selling nukes and queens.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also have brochures for Missouri State Beekeepers Association, and talk to just new people all the time, or people interested in bees and whatnot. I saw it. But when there are more than one honey vendor at a market, I've had people come up to our table and say, okay, why should I buy your honey instead of their honey?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to say anything bad about the other company, but I'll be like, well, like, I can give you a lot of education over here. I can tell you about our honey. I can tell you what might be different from our honey than their honey. I'm like, we offer a larger variety of products, but I go, you can buy my honey and go buy their honey for all I care. Like, I'm not going to put another vendor down. I don't know what they do or their processes, but I'll speak up our high points, and what we do in our bee yards and how we, do our bees and our honey and all what we're involved in and things like that. Mm-hmm. So
we just woo them with words.
Yeah.
We just word salad them,
Vote for me.
Yeah. But I think, Melissa, one thing you said, we've had this conversation before, is really important. Talk yourself up. Don't talk your competitor down.
Because there's a reason for that.
I agree.
Because you're 100%. Spewing negativity, and there could be things that your competitor does that you don't like. Mm-hmm. And there's a way to highlight that by saying, this is what I do. I can tell you exactly where this honey came from. I can tell you when I pulled it, when it went in that jar. I can tell you how they're doing this year. I can tell you exactly where, I am the beekeeper. If you have a question about bees, you can come to me, and that's saying all the things that your competitor isn't, but it's not putting them down. It's highlighting all of the attributes that you have as a potential seller of that product, as opposed to the other person. I've had people come up to me, and Tom and Melissa know who I'm talking about. They're like, I don't get it. How does the math work? How does this person have all these stores and all these booths? And I'm like, thank you for being an astute customer. And they've tried to bait me into negative talking this competitor. And there's this one lady where I had to tell her outright, I'm not going to talk my competitor down. I will tell you everything about how my business runs and how I do my bee management practices. And thank you for being an astute customer, by the way. The math doesn't add up. Yeah, I get what you mean.
I would ask them and say, you know what? You probably would need to ask them. Ask them the tough questions and see how they respond. But like you said, I'm not going to be the guy to trash talk them. It's kind of like the whole mudslinging thing with politicians. Absolutely drives me nuts. If your company, your products, your company model do not stand, it doesn't stand on its own, you need to change something that you're doing. It's kind of like and that's a fair question. And that's not something that I would shy away from in a market either. And it's like, why should I buy from you? I'm like, you know what? That's actually a really good question. And I'm glad you asked, And they're like, well, what do you want to know? I can tell you anything like you just said about the bees, how we process things, where the hives are located at approximately, all these fun facts that can help you understand that I am doing all of my due diligence as a beekeeper and providing this product to you or products to you to give you the absolute best that I can. Occasionally you'll get somebody who's like, well, I buy it from so-and-so and it's this much. I'm like, hey, that's really great. I'm like, I'm glad you found a supplier that can take care of what you need. It's like, well, he's actually out, and be like, yeah, I'm really sorry. I don't really know what to tell you, but I'm happy to tell you what I've got here. The prices are marked on the containers. And, like Melissa and I have talked about before, it's like when somebody comes up and says, you have a bottle of honey and say, it's this right here, a quart size, that's 28. Wow. That's kind of expensive. And it's like, well, we take a lot of pride in the products that we're putting forward and the processes that we have to ensure integrity. And unfortunately that costs a little bit,
And taking care of the bees.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to shortcut anything, but hey, if you have a guy that sells it to you for cheaper, keep them. If you like what you're getting, you don't need to come to me. Ultimately, there's a lot of times they end up leaving with our product. Somebody may have bought from the guy at the market from us earlier, and it's like, oh, well, he was selling da. I'm like, oh, that's great. And it's like they're looking at, but you guys have such a really nice display. I'm like, well, we appreciate it. Thank you. We put a lot of thought into it. And then next thing you know, it strikes up a conversation, and they're leaving with the bottle of our honey too. I'm like, hey, we really appreciate the purchase, today. And, let us know if we can help you out. Follow us. Here's a business card. Follow us on social media, YouTube, and all these other areas. Let us know how we can help you in the future,
So I had a market, was it last week, maybe on Thursday? Anyway, there's a guy, maybe a couple weeks ago, anyway, that sells local produce at this one market I was at, and he also sells somebody else's honey. And this company that he sells, I'm not going to name them, but they're not too far from us.
Who is it?
I don't know. But if you go to their Facebook page, there's never any pictures. There's always information about their markets and their farmers markets that they're doing and this and that. But there's never any pictures of them in their colonies. Yep. The only picture that I've seen of them in colonies is a very small yard with hardly, I don't even know if there's 10 hives in this yard. And the amount of stores that this company is in, and the amount of markets that they sell at, where are they getting this? There's no, in my mind, I can't say that it's not their honey, but I have no idea where, if you would post pictures of you beekeeping, I would think, you know what I mean, to promote that you're doing this work. So, anyway, my point to that was somebody walked by my booth and said, oh, you got a competitor down there. I'm like, well, I go, not really. I go, that's not his honey. I go, and that company really focuses on flavored honeys, but I didn't say anything bad about that company. And a lot of the stuff they have in stores is flavored honeys. So I'm like, yeah, it's a different, different company, there's different product.
We were talking about Bryan Zavada.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the worst, man.
But anyway, that kind of is I don't know. One thing is they were trying to hey, what about these people? I'm like, no, they're gonna do what their business plan does, but in the back of my mind, it's just bothers me that they sell all this honey, but they're claiming to be local honey, but are they local honey? Because there's not any outright evidence of it, but whatever. Right. Not my.
The end of the day it's not my business. Yeah. It's theirs.
Yeah. Now you touched on it just a second ago, as far as getting your booth set up and everything looking really nice. Let's talk about branding for just a minute. How important do y'all think branding is for your product? Even with a small beekeeper, with all the technology out there now, it's actually pretty easy to get branding. Not always cheap, but if you come up with a logo, you can get it put on a t-shirt, a hat, whatever you want, pencils, coffee cups, your calling cards, get you a table cover that's got your logo on the front of it. I got one of those. I mean, you can get tents with your logo on it. But how important do you think branding is to selling your product? What do you think, Bryan?
I think it's very important. I think branding, I think the image creates a tone. It creates a vibe that your customer is going to pick up on immediately. I think brand recognition. Say it again, Melissa.
A level of professionalism too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're put together a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, it's a picture that tells a story about your business. Like what's your logo like, Keith? You've got a great story for you as a beekeeper, half tracks and honeybees. It's a really identical, it's a very unique story, those two going together. It really tells the story of you as the all-American boy, right? The military vehicle talks about your family history and how you found your dad's old Jeep, and you kind of have to know the backstory of it to really to get the whole thing, but I can hear those conversations that you have with customers when they're like, "Oh, why half tracks and honeybees?" You know, and it's a really great story. Do you have a logo for your business? Have you branded it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I can try to bring one up here in a minute. But yeah, it does good conversations, because then it gets to the ask them if they go to any local parades. I'm like, you remember that big green army truck that went by? They're like, oh, that was so cool. I'm like, yeah, that was me. So,
that's a head turner.
So you're never going to be confused with another beekeeper, because what other beekeeper has a half track, right? So it's part of what makes you so unique in your business, is because you have that unique story, and that picture of your logo tells that story. So when your customer sees that picture, they're going to have that feeling come back to them that they walked away from the experience with you at their booth for. And we sell logos, we sell hats, more for myself than anyone else. We sell shirts. Some of our shirts have our name of our business on it. Some of it's just our logo without it. I didn't really think, there you go. I didn't really think people were going to buy our shirts that have our business name on it, but some people do. I just like the idea of this is just a cool bee hat, and it supports bees all together. But I also like how there's this inner circle where other people see it and they're like, that's a Flower Street Farm hat. And I'm sure that's terrible marketing, but I love that kind of inside joke kind of thing about it. But I think a picture is really important. I think a good name is really important. Half Tracks and Honeybees alliterates just like Flower Street Farm does, right? So it's catchy and it's memorable. And I think that's something that's really important as you want to have a repeat customer. It drives me crazy sometimes. We do a couple of annual festivals, and we'll get people that come back every year, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here this year. I couldn't wait to get your honey again. And I'm like, our website is on the jar. It's on the lake. You can order anytime you want. And you live in Lakewood too. You could come by my house and pick it up. It's crazy. But people remember the logo. They remember that, they remember the name, and they want to come back and they want to have that same experience. I was for a while, I was a little critical of Charlie because he has a great story for his business too. But he doesn't really have a cleaned up logo. Like, what a cool logo he could have. He just does the bee catalog stickers. And I think to myself, as far as branding goes, that's not really the best way to do it. But he's also got a business model where he doesn't need branding. He's got all the customers that come right to him, where he's like, I don't need to spend $50 to have some college kid make me a PDF of a saw blade, my name over the top. I can sell my honey just fine. And he's right.
Brian will do it for me.
Yeah. I mean, the fact is, he's right. He doesn't need it. His situation where he doesn't need to brand it. He's got such a good story already that the picture on the front of the jar doesn't matter too much, but I would say that maybe he'd do a little bit better if he had a better logo.
So Brian, I want to add just a little bit to what you're talking about. I agree with everything you just said. The only thing that I would add to what you just said is, if you're comfortable staying as how do I word this?
Porch pickup? No,
a smaller local beekeeper, that works. But if you want to sell on a website and get in all the stores in your entire area, and you need to push a little harder, and you will have to have some of those things in place to create. You need to create some excitement and somebody looking at your product saying, hey, if you have the two of the same glass jars on the shelf sitting there, and you're like, okay, they're both, 100% raw honey, and they're both local. Why do I want to buy one over the other? Well, at some point, like Ann pointed out here just a minute ago, people are very visual. If something looks really appealing or it catches their eye, they're absolutely going to buy it. It might be not a great product, but people's eyes are going to gravitate toward that because of a look, a logo, a color scheme. I mean, any number of things that they're going to kind of, again, gravitate towards. So you might need to, if you're going to sell on a larger scale, you might need to step up your game a little bit and have that logo or better marketing, things like that. So it kind of depends, I think, on what your goal is. If you want to, I don't know. I've always said this, and I agree with this. You're going to get out of something what you put into it. If you put very little, expect very little. If you put a lot, don't expect a lot, expect a little less, because it's really hard work, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's just my thought when it comes to, you know, your product that you're selling.
Now, along those, along the marketing, branding line, me and Bryan touched on it a little bit before we went live. The contrast between mine and his, where he has a whole lot of products and it's all one size, and I really just have one product and have a whole bunch of different sizes of that one product. Mm-hmm. You know, the two different ways you can go about things based on, I guess, your goals. You know, where I'm just a retired guy looking for, like I told people before, it's the first hobby. I hate to call it a hobby. It's the first pastime I've ever had that actually paid for itself. Most of my pastimes in the past have been money pits that you just shoveled money into and never got any kind of a return. But with beekeeping, if you do it right, you can definitely be in the black with beekeeping.
Oh, for sure.
Unlike many other things folks get into. But what are y'all's thoughts on that as far as products, number of products, sizing of products, what you want available for the customer? What do you think, Tom and Melissa?
So my thing right now is when you go to a market, typically your spaces are 10 by 10. So you really need to figure out what you can fit in that 10 by 10 space and how you can configure it. The way that we set up our tables all the time is just straight across the front. And we have so many products right now that in my mind, I think our table's starting to look a little bit busy, like just congested. So we either need to work on height or we need to expand to 2 booths. Because I don't know, I feel like when the markets that we go to, most people have their tables right there on the outside edge of their canopy. And when you pull the tables in, I feel like people aren't going to walk into your booth when they see all these other canopies with the tables right there on the outside. So we keep ours on the outside too. So we kind of need to work on, which I think our tables look fine now, but I feel like if we started doing flavors or we started, adding any more products, we're not going to have room on that 10 by 10 front space for those products. And it's just going to look messy and people might pass you by because they're overwhelmed with what you have. So I think your setup definitely has, curb appeal, needs to have curb appeal to the customers walking by to pull people in. And I'll tell you what, when I had a market Saturday at a winery out about, 45 minutes past us. And I brought bees because you can bring bees in spring because other bees aren't going to pay attention to the bees that you bring. And that was like a huge magnet for everybody walking by. But it was nice because I had a corner booth. So I had the front and I had the side that I could utilize. So I put the bees on the side with some informational flyers and whatnot over there. And people would come over and talk about that. And then the customers wanting to buy honey could come to the front where all the products were. So that worked out really well. And actually, Bryan, at that market, there were some people from Denver came through and were looking at the honey. And I'm like, oh, where are you at in Denver? And I can't remember where she said, but not too far from Lakewood. So I'm like, oh, look up Bryan. And he does the market at, I can't remember the name of it right now.
It's all right. But you gave me the referral.
Yeah, but she knew exactly where the market was, and all of a sudden I'm like,
Nice.
yeah, look for it. And I actually gave her your name and wrote it down for her. She was so excited. So we'll see if she seeks you out.
You know, I got to the point when I started markets, I would do different sizes. But then as we got more and more honey, we have a Cottage Food Act that allows us to sell up to $10,000 of each product. So legally, I can do $10,000 worth of sales in creamed honey, 10,000 in cinnamon creamed honey, 10,000 in cacao creamed honey. So if I diversified my product line, I was more legal. Now, I'm not saying that there's a lot of people looking over me, making sure I don't sell 10,000 of any product. That's not really the case. But that was kind of well, let's maybe diversify. And it became fun for us. We also have honey that crystallizes really quickly. So instead of fighting that crystallization process, we decided to work with it. And we created quite a niche for ourselves with creamed honey. So we started bringing different size honeys, but now I'm getting I think I have 12 different flavors that I'm bringing to the market this weekend. Do you think I'm going to have 5 different sizes of 12 different flavors? Think about the inventory nightmare when I have, the 5 3-ounces left and none of the quarts left. And you know what I mean? That's just so
that
when
would be
people
a
ask
problem.
if I have, yeah, so people want to ask if I have different size. I say, here are your choices. Many flavors, one size. Now, one problem that we did recognize that happened was because of our markets. We have the parent who flies in and is visiting the kid who moved to Denver. So they go to the farmer's market and they want to bring a souvenir back to wherever they're from. So what I would do is a lot of what you were just describing, Melissa, encourage them to find a good local beekeeper where they're from, but that doesn't help me out there in the moment. So one thing we started doing was bringing little kind of 2-ounce honey favors to the market and not really push them and not put them up front, because a lot of times people will buy that smallest jar possible just to give you that sale.
Yeah.
So it was something we put in the back, and if it was a conversation we had with someone, we would point it out to them and be like, oh, you can take this on a plane. That would be perfect. It's a nice little gift, a nice little souvenir, that kind of thing. So we did start doing that. But because we have so many different flavor choices, it didn't make sense for us to have. I mean, it just became an inventory nightmare. You had to have different jars, different labels, different this, different that. And, I do way better with a simple plan. And if I have the same size jar for everything, that's going to make my life a whole lot easier. I want to shift gears a little bit and
can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question right first?
Yeah.
So all those flavors, how many jars of each flavor do you bring?
It depends on the event. This weekend is an opening weekend, so it's going to be a lot more than when I go in August in the heat of the summer. It's going to be different at a weekend festival if I'm there Saturday and Sunday. The Saturday market is better than the Sunday market. So typically what I do is I pack the truck up on Saturday for the weekend. And then if I sell out, if I sell a lot of lemon ginger creamed honey, I'll supplement that for the Sunday market. So typically, Melissa, for the less popular flavors, I'll split up a case of 12. So it'll be 6 and 6. If it's a popular flavor, I'll do a whole case for that flavor. But again, it's going to vary. May is such a strong month for the farmers market that it's going to be a little bit heavier for that amount. But again, it varies from event to event, and you just got to learn. You just got to kind of estimate and learn, and overestimating is better than underestimating. I'd rather pick up a box twice than not make a couple of sales.
She's shaking her head, but the reality of that,
he's always
that
like,
head shake,
why are
Bryan,
you filling so many bottles? Why are you filling so many bottles?
The reality of that head shake is she doesn't have to load it and unload it. It's usually me. So it's not a problem if she overpacks. See?
Yeah.
Her back doesn't hurt.
Stop it. I can lift stuff this year. It's amazing.
Oh, good. You get to pack the car.
I wanted to ask Keith about the different sizes in jars, and are they plastic or glass? And that's a conversation I want to have as well. But first I want to talk to who does who does the court speak to? Like which customers are picking which, and what's your distribution and sales? What's your smallest jar? What's your largest jar? And what does your sales look like across the board?
The smallest is a little 8-ounce honey bear plastic that I sell.
Okay.
That people buy that because it's the cheapest and it's cute.
Okay.
Cute sells. But the next size is a little 12-ounce plastic squeeze. Last year that was priced at $10, and it was my biggest seller because people seem to like to just throw $10 bills at you. So they like that even price point. I also have a bigger plastic squeeze, which is kind of an odd size. Is 18 ounces. I guess that'd be what, pound and a half, kind of. No, not exactly. But anyway, it's a larger squeeze bottle. And then I've just got glass pints and glass quarts. So I've got, 5 different sizes, 3 plastic and 2 glass. The quart size, since I did that first pull and got my spring honey and started actually selling, I had a list of, that was before I actually put it on Facebook that I had any to sell. I had a list of names, about 2 pages of names that I told I would contact as soon as I had honey available. Gosh, 95% of what I've sold so far this year has been quarts. So I don't know if it's the folks have done without their honey over the winter and they want to make sure they've got some, or some of them are folks that use a lot of honey. They've replaced a lot of their sugar with honey, and they go through quite a bit. But yeah, gosh, so far this year, my quart sales are way above anything else. So don't know if that'll hold or not once I actually get to the market, because once you get to the market, I think having the different sizes, the different price points helps out, because it depends on how much money the person wants to spend. If they walk up to the table and they want to spend $10, I've got a choice for them. If they want to spend $30, they could buy anything on the table. So I think that helps out. Now, some folks do only want glass. They're the anti-plastic crowd. Some folks love the plastic because they like the squeeze bottle. They don't like having to, get a spoon out every time you want to dip some honey. So,
how did you go about making that decision, plastic versus glass? Did you know what you wanted to do going into the market, or has that changed over time based on your customer base?
It changed. When I first got into it, I just had the glass pints and quarts.
Okay.
That's where I started at, and then I saw that some folks wanted to spend a little bit less, and the plastic gave me some cheaper price points. So that's kind of where that expanded. And then I saw folks selling lots of the honey bears because they were cute. I said, well, I can try that. And sure enough, people buy the honey bears because they're cute. And the little 2-ounce jobbies y'all were talking about, I just ended up making, 50 or 60 of those. I don't really sell those at a market. I use those if I do a presentation at the library or other events. I just use those for little giveaways. And that's kind of advertisement, because then people will come to the market and say, my kid got some honey and they thought it was great and I want to buy some now. So that works out pretty good.
Yeah. We do really well with those for like wedding favors. We've had like realtors buy bulk of those to give out to clients and stuff like that. And Jen's created
they're fun to fill.
The speed fill makes it awesome. I've never done those before, the speed fill, but man, that speed fill pays for itself with those, Keith. Worth it in gold right there.
Yeah, filling them out in my 5-gallon bucket with a honey gate is nerve-wracking at best.
Yeah, no, thank you.
You have to go very slow, and I still make a mess occasionally. You can ask Michelle.
Someone in the comments made a anti-plastic comment, and made that comment, anti-plastic, and that's something that we deal with as well in the Denver community, of that idea of leaching. Our honey crystallizes really quickly. So I do know that part of the answer to that is educating your customer base about crystallization not being bad. But the fact is that the American consumer often wants honey in liquid form. So to re-liquefy honey, for me, the safest way would be to put it in glass. I want to say I do have a little bit of hex jar regret. When we thought about presentation and packaging, we really like the look of hex jars. We think they look really nice for like the gift kind of purchase, but they're a pain in several ways that I wish we would have chosen a rounded jar instead. First of all, labeling. I wish I had a labeler that I could put labels on, and a round jar would make that so much more possible than a hex jar. And then the idea of doing so many creamed honeys and trying to get creamed honey out of a hex jar as opposed to a round jar that just goes straight up and down would just be so much easier for the consumer to use. So there are a lot of different things you want to think about as far as like what shape, size, plastic versus glass. But I know I'm not locked into hex jars, but that's definitely one challenge that I found with the hex jars as we've scaled up, is making it a little bit more functional. And I got to tell you, we took a road trip with a bunch of beekeepers to Missouri and visited Corey Stevens, learned all about the Harvo assay, and we stayed at an Airbnb. And a whole bunch of beekeepers brought honey. And for breakfast, we had a whole bunch of honeys out on the table. And you know what honey got used the most? A plastic squeeze bottle honey by beekeepers, because it was so convenient and easy to use, to put in your cereal, to put in your yogurt, to put on whatever, to turn it upside down and squeeze it. Doesn't make a mess at all. And I'll tell you right now, it was Tar Heel Beekeepers. It was Randy's honey that I brought that everyone just used. It was that nice sourwood honey. But cool. From a convenience standpoint, a lot of times your customer wants a plastic squeeze bottle because it is the easiest way to get that honey from whatever container it's in to whatever you're putting it on. So I totally get that. So it is a tough decision for sure.
We find that with people with younger families or kids. We offer one plastic squeeze bottle with the no drip lid, so it's a little bit nicer lid. Everything else is glass. So occasionally when people are asking, or mothers out there with their kids and asking certain things, I'm like, well, we have in different sizes. We have for the standard 1 pound. That's what we kind of call it. And we have different glass sizes that you can purchase it in. And I'm like, if you're looking for bang for buck, you probably would want to go with the quart size. But I'm like, the downfall is you have to get out of the container, not by flipping it over and squeezing it. So I'm like, what you could do is if you're looking for convenience and value, buy one of each, right? So you can kind of sell a couple things to them, and you can say, what I would do if I was you, you can put the quart jar up on the shelf where the kids can't get it. You take your 1 pound squeeze down. When they finish it off, go over to the sink, little funnel inside there, pour it inside there. And it might not be a bad idea if it was maybe set out for 10 minutes on a warm, sunny day to kind of get it warmed up a little bit. It'll flow a little bit easier. Or you can put it in a pot of warm water for say 20, 30 minutes, pour it down inside there. And then the kids can then have the squeeze bottle. You don't have to worry about breaking it, but you're storing a little bit more long-term in the cupboard with the glass piece, So sometimes you can turn that into a couple sales, but we try to offer something for everybody. If somebody came to the table and said, hey, what's the most economical size? I'm like, well, it depends on what you're looking for, 1 pound squeeze bottle, $12. I'm like, and they're like, well, I get it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, if you're looking for more value, I'm like, you can absolutely get that with us, So I don't tell them, no, I can't get you something at a better deal. I give them an option that moves more of my product. So I win, and potentially if they're interested, they win. So I'm like, well, you can get my honey for $6 a pound if you want to. That's half of what that squeeze bottle cost. But I'm like, you have to buy 60 pounds of it in a bucket. Yeah. So I'm like, you can definitely do that. It's like, wow, people buy that. I'm like, all the time. We literally had a dentist or orthodontist wife come in. And I'm like, and her husband does teeth, and they're buying 60 pounds of sugar, for crying out loud, right? And they said they go through a lot and they share it with family. I'm like, that's a great way to buy it. If you don't mind portioning it out of a 5-gallon bucket and then into smaller containers for usage, you can absolutely get it cheaper. You're just going to have to buy a lot of it up front. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Well, also, I wanted to make one point that Bryan talked about, the container. So there's, 2 points. One, I would say, is if you don't produce a lot of honey the first couple of years, don't offer large sizes. Offer smaller sizes to your customers so you can drag it out a little bit more and potentially have a little bit higher profit margin on each one of those containers as you're sending out. Maybe don't offer anything more than 1 pound. Don't offer 2, 3, or 12-pound gallon size. Just offer a couple sizes and keep it very simple. Have a nice, attractive label and keep it simple. You can always scale up later if you wanted to. For one, again, in some ways, I would like to sell a lot more of the smaller sizes because now I'm getting more money per ounce for my honey. Now, the trade-off is it might be a little bit more work to get into that container because you still have some of the same fixed cost. A 2-ounce little bitty bear might cost the same as what an 8-ounce, or very, very similar by the time you label it and everything else. It's not a whole lot of savings there. So you have to charge a little more for that or have a minimum cost. Bryan and I have talked about this before when it comes to like candles and such. That's a trial and error thing as far as what people gravitate toward. You might buy one of a mold, try it for a little bit. And if it's really popular, you might buy 5 or 6, because the reality is you pour a mold on a candle, it has to set up for X amount of minutes. You can't just keep pouring a whole bunch. So then like when Melissa pours candles, she'll set up and pour like several candles because we have a lot of molds, and then come back and do a pour day. Well, she'll spend 4, 5, 6 hours just pouring a whole bunch of candles for the next month or something like that. So again, I think it kind of depends on the market you have, how much product you have, but again, I would suggest don't be shy in charging for that either.
Bryan, you made a comment about you don't offer the smaller sizes. So the smallest size that we offer is a 3-ounce mini mason jar that's glass in regular honey, liquid honey. And we don't sell a ton of those until like the holiday season. Then people buy a ton of them for stocking stuffers and host gifts and gifts for stuff like that. So, but yeah, we sell those. They're 3 ounces. We sell those for $6.
Okay.
So it kind of, they might be spending less money, but the profit margin's a lot more for the ounces of honey that they're buying.
Yep. Now, Keith, you sell only honey. Do you ever get people wanting to, like, people coming up to you saying, do you sell this? Do you sell this? Do you sell this? To the point where you're like, maybe I should start making that. Or you're good with just selling honey.
Yeah. The only thing I sell besides honey, Michelle rolls some candles. Yeah. Using sheets of foundation, wax foundation. And she stencils some little glass honey jars with that. She's got a little gizmo called a cricket that she can cut stencils with. And so the candles and the little glass jars, and then the rest of it's pretty much all liquid honey. Sometimes I'm a little bit of comb honey, but I don't have, gosh, if I made 10 jars of comb honey, that would probably be more than I needed for the whole season. I just don't have that many people looking for it. But a lot of the stuff that you guys market, the creamed honey, if I say creamed honey, a lot of people think I'm talking about crystallized honey. That's really not very well known around these parts. That being the case, it might be a good money stream. I mean, it might be a good thing to do, but the situation I'm in, I really not looking to expand into those areas right now. Because the liquid honey is doing all I want it to do for me. So
what are the products that people what are the products that people ask about the most? Like, do you have this? I get pollen a lot. Do you sell pollen? And I'm like, no.
I get that one a few times this season.
Yeah.
I've thought about doing that, but I've never done it. I mean, it's pretty easy to do. The bees do all the work basically, but I guess you got to dry it. But I get asked about that, the comb honey a little bit, but really never been asked about cream honey. I guess I've been asked about hot honey.
You're going to step to the side.
But
sit off to the side.
Then I'm going to meet you.
I tell them how they can make that themselves, but I hadn't made any of that. With the cottage industry laws here in North Carolina, I'm a little worried about getting into any kind of flavoring of honeys, because then you get into that gray area where a certified kitchen is required.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't want to go there. So I don't know if that's a worry that you guys have or not with what you do. But
it absolutely is. The beauty about Missouri is we actually have a specific honey law that we don't have to fall under the cottage food law because there are some things that would hold us back in regards to that. So every state's going to have different rules and regulations on that. And sometimes it is even by municipality might have stricter regulations than what the state may have. And unfortunately, if you're in that municipality, you have to follow those rules and regulations as far as that goes. So having a good working understanding of that I think is pretty important too. And that's kind of limited us in certain things, fortunately now. And this is something to think about. You don't have to build a $40,000 or $50,000 commercial kitchen in your garage space or an extra facility or what have you. You can rent commissary kitchen space and that will suffice, which is something that Melissa and I here have actually worked toward doing. Right now, we don't want to spend the investment on building such because, again, that would require us to buy property, build a building. So you're probably talking in the reality of $75,000, $100,000 by the time it was all said and done. Just to get that and be able to do a few more things, but we can rent from a commissary kitchen that we have found to do just that, and had some conversations. So technically we can't sell our bourbon barrel aged honey, and technically I can't even sell creamed honey unflavored without that commissary or a commercial kitchen license to do so here in the state of Missouri. There are some things that are probably overlooked a lot. You're kind of running a fine line, and maybe you can kind of one of those scenarios where maybe you ask for forgiveness, not for permission, if you're really small scale. But as you kind of scale up and become a little bit more well known, you're going to have to make those steps moving forward to be accommodated in all those areas, because your liability now goes up too. So one other thing I was going to point out earlier when we were talking about containers, that might be something really to think about as you scale up and you don't want to take that label off by hand and put it on there. When I was looking at labelers last year at Nobby, I went and I was talking to a gentleman from a company called Race Label. I think he was up north, if I remember correctly. I had a conversation with him. I was really interested in his product. He has a labeling machine that can do everything from lip balm containers to odd shaped containers like the hourglass plastic squeeze bottles to cylinders to everything else. And the easiest container that you can put a label on is a cylinder. That's why some people will use just a straight cylinders across the board for every one of their products. It's easy because now you can take a round labeling machine and you don't have to spend $3,000 on one that does odd shape sizes. You can get one for a lot cheaper that will do cylinders really easy. It's basically, you set it on these rollers and they wipe on. But when you have an odd shaped container, like Bryan mentioned, the hex is the hex is not as bad, but you get more complicated when you go with like the hourglass squeeze bottles or something that's a little bit odd shaped or tapered. It becomes much more difficult to get a label on. And what Melissa and I have found moving forward is one of our bottlenecks, no pun intended, is that I kept telling her, I'm like, I want the labels on the round rolls, and I want at least a couple of labelers, maybe not for every size that we do, because some we use the glass muth jars, and that's on a piece of twine that gets tied there with the label. So that's a little bit different, takes a little bit longer. But some of the other ones, I'd like it to be much more streamlined and easy, where you can set it up on the speed fill it up, you cap it, you run it through the label, and you set it aside, all in a matter of a few seconds. So definitely, as you would scale up and produce more honey, sell more bottles in the retail size like that, you would need to think about streamlining the process. As you're doing it just a little bit here or there, it's probably not a big deal. So I don't know. I guess depends on what a person might want to scale up to and how they would approach that. But our, again, bottleneck right now looking at is I actively want to buy a labeler or a couple different labelers that stay set up for certain containers and have the rolls on there. You go down there, you do however many you need, and move on. Melissa and I don't typically bottle honey for a month out. We only bottle it for a week to 2 weeks out. So if we know we have X amount of markets coming up, we'll bottle a bunch of it, because some of our lighter honey will crystallize a little faster. It's mainly the black locust. So I don't want to have to go back, take that container, put it in a warmer, and do another step with it, because the more steps I have to do with it, the more times I have to handle it to get it out the door, the more money it costs me. So that's kind of the reality of how we're starting to look at things. But for a small beekeeper that might produce 60, 100, a couple hundred pounds, most of these things are just kind of a non-issue. But these are things you might think about moving forward that could help you and choose the containers that you want, the labels that you want, and all these different small nuances.
Chris had a question. Do you see it?
Yeah, Chris. So we do use a tag for the Muth glass.
We don't put any stickers on it.
We don't put any stickers on the glass itself. It's basically filled up to the fill line, cork it with a heat shrink seal, a non-tamper-proof seal. And then Melissa has these little backer cards with the hour sticker that goes on there. And then it gets tied on with twine. So there's a little bit more
time consuming.
Yeah, it's a little more of a time consuming effort, which I don't like. She doesn't mind doing it. So they look nice and people like them. So we continue to sell it. We used to offer that in 8 ounce and a 16 ounce. We found that the 8 ounce didn't sell as well. So we completely eliminated that here this year. I think we have like 1 case left that we'll sell off, but we actually didn't buy any this year. We just said, well, that's one that we're going to eliminate. I'd rather have a select number of different containers that sell really well than have extra ones that sell mediocre. So just kind of how we approached it. Time, we all just have time, Eric.
One question I have for you. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay. I just want to add something about sizes, and this isn't necessarily honey related, but we have one product. So we grow a lot of lavender, and we distill lavender for essential oils, but you also get a water-based product called a hydrosol. So we sell lavender hydrosol, we sell peppermint hydrosols, and we were selling them in 4-ounce spray bottles, and they weren't selling very well. And for whatever reason, I think it was because I was making the propolis tincture in the 2-ounce spray bottles. One time I put our hydrosols in the 2-ounce spray bottles, and I don't know why, but they started selling. Something about the 4-ounce size, and we were making more money per ounce on the 2-ounce as opposed to the 4-ounce, how we priced them. It was just something about the size wasn't appealing to the customer. All we had to do was change the size, and for some reason that product became more appealing. So I'm not sure how that relates necessarily to honey, but that's definitely something we experienced at the market that we were like, what the hell, man? That makes no sense at all. But we'll go with it. It's just kind of something we just kind of discovered. So size can make a difference in the product. Like I think about lip balms too. You have different tubes or tins, even stuff like that can make a difference.
Yeah. Do you guys offer discounts at the booth? If somebody pops up and say they want to buy 4 quarts of honey, you give them a deal? You don't.
We do a vendor discount. We'll give a 20% discount to other vendors. We'll also try to trade with other vendors, but I typically don't discount. Now we have a couple of products that, like, if you buy a lotion bar, it's $10 or no, it's $12 or 2 for $20, but not for honey products. Just because honey is so special.
Okay.
So Brian and I, we both have something that we like to do, and there is a discount technically that we offer. It's very, very. You know what I'm getting ready to say, don't you?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. You're going to know as soon as I say it. We offer something that we call the cool kid discount.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So technically, that doesn't happen very often. But if there's a young person that walks up to the table and they have like $5 or something like that, and for instance, like there's a couple of young kids that walked up one time and was like, "Hey, how much is that?" I'm like, "Well, that's such and such," or there's usually the prices listed out there. And they said, "Yeah, I really want that. Wouldn't mind having that cut comb." I'm like, "Yeah, you like cut comb?" I was like, "Oh yeah." And they're like, "How much is it?" And I'm like, "Well, I think for you today, I think it's what if they had 10 or 15 bucks, we normally sell it for 20 bucks. I'm like, "Here you go." I'm like, "That's how much it is today." Okay, cool. So, again, we don't do that real often, but occasionally you just get that little feeling inside. You're like, "Yeah, you need to give the kid a break," right? So we've called it the cool kid discount before. So that's about the only thing we typically do. I usually, like I said, as far as discount goes, if people are looking for bang for buck, I sell them on something bigger. So, I'm like, well, depends on what you're looking for. I can get it to you cheaper, but you just have to buy more. So
Keith, you'll discount people?
Do what?
Will you discount people if they want like 4 quarts?
Yeah.
So
we're dealing.
How much do you discount
it? Last year, my quart price was $28.
Mm-hmm.
If they bought 4 quarts, I'd do it for $25. This year, I'm going up to $30, and I'll probably drop to $28 if they'll do 4 quarts.
So your quart jars, how much are you paying per jar?
Well, I don't know if you need to ask specific questions like that.
Well, no, I'm doing math in my head because like a gallon, 4 quarts is a gallon. So we can get a gallon jug for like, I don't know, $2.50, where the jars for us cost us like $1.15 or something like that, a quart jar for glass. Right. So if you're in my head, anyway, this is how my head works. I'm doing the same amount of honey for a gallon jug as for four quarts, ounce wise, but giving them 4 quart jars is costing me a lot more money.
It's costing you more in glass.
Yeah. So but I don't know. That's why we offer a gallon, because I don't want to lose money on glass going out the door. I'd rather just sell the gallon.
Yeah. No, this year I'm offering a little gallon bucket also.
Yeah.
I'm adding that to my, I'm going to try it and see if I have much interest in it. So, it's cute. It looks like a 5-gallon bucket. It's just a little gallon bucket. Mm-hmm. So,
do you ever, Keith, have people wanting 5-gallon buckets? Will you sell them that in bulk?
Yeah.
How do you go about pricing that?
Now I've got my 5-gallon price that I would sell a mead maker, where I was selling like 20 or 30 gallons at a time. It would be a higher price than that because I would consider that kind of wholesale, going to a mead maker. Yeah, where it's still retail going to a customer at the market. So it would be higher than that wholesale price.
This is the challenge for the beekeeper who sells honey at the farmer's market, because this is often the context where you can get the most for your honey. Direct to customer at a farmer's market kind of situation. But then you get people that come up and they want to buy in bulk. And sometimes it's really tempting. Sometimes you really want to help them out. But that if you sold them honey in that bucket, as opposed to putting that honey in jars, you're going to move that product a whole lot faster, but you're going to not make as much money on it. So there was a period of time where I was like, nope, I don't do any bulk, and I've started to kind of waver on that a little bit, depending on the situation. We just started a relationship with another vendor who's like a sourdough bread maker, and they make granola and everything. And we just started selling them honey on a bulk basis, but I had to really think about it. In fact, I had to call up Tom and be like, what do you think? This is how much I can make per pound selling it in a little tiny hex jar. What I almost felt guilty about asking the price that I asked for the people, but I was like, well, the worst they could do is say no. And I know that the price I asked per pound isn't exactly what other folks are getting retail, but it's pretty darn close in some situations. So part of me doesn't feel bad, but part of me is wondering if I'm losing money on it. But then there's the other part. It's a cool relationship. It's a relationship with another small business. We're going to hype each other. So hopefully it'll lead to both of us getting more business. So it's not just about the bottom line and the dollar amount. It's about the generation of customer base or whatever that it can provide to your business. So I've started thinking about this, and I've started thinking too, like if I get to a certain point, I don't want to hire I don't want to hire employees. So I don't want to hire 5 different people to go out to 5 different markets. I've only got so much of me to go to the market to sell on a Saturday and a Sunday. So I get to the point where I have buckets and buckets left over in the winter. Maybe moving some of those on a wholesale kind of basis works for my business model, because I'm not going to be able to move all of that on my own without growing in a way that I don't want to grow. So I've gotten to the point where I'm starting to consider those situations a lot more. And I know Tom and Melissa, you guys have been there for a while selling buckets. And I know Keith, you've done that too. And
well, if you think about the buckets, you're selling it for less, obviously, than what you would sell it for per pound, even in a plastic squeeze bottle. But you don't have the time into filling all those bottles now. You don't have the money into the bottles or the labels either. So you got to think of it that way. And when you start selling buckets, it's typically because you have that surplus of honey, that bumper crop or whatever you want to call it. And you can only sell so much at a market on the weekends. You know what I mean? You're only going to move so much product. So you have to find some other avenue to get rid of that honey. And what we sell our buckets for, that's our wholesale price. We sell at that price to whoever wants to buy it in a 60-pound 5-gallon bucket. Whether you're buying 20 buckets or you're buying 1 bucket, you're paying the same price. But because it's already discounted, it's just over $6 a pound or something like that is what we sell it for.
Other beekeepers in the area that I know are buying and reselling it. Now, whether they disclose it's not their honey or not, I really don't concern myself with it a whole lot, if I'm being honest with you. For me, I really don't care. If they want to be honest about if it's theirs or not, that's on them. I've told Melissa before, when it comes to ours, I'm like, everything on our table, I want it to be ours. Otherwise, we're just not going to sell it. Now, I'm not saying that's good, that's bad. It's just something that we've chose to do. Now, if we have some people who are like, hey, I want to buy, 1,000 pounds from you or whatever, I'm like, well, unfortunately, I can't give you that. Because I need X amount for my retail customers, and I'm not going to harvest for X amount of time, but I could go to them and say, hey, I have a trusted source that I can get that. You'd be going through me. If you would like to entertain that, we absolutely could do that. Again, this is not ours, but it's from a trusted source, somebody that I know that's semi-local. I'm like, we can get it and we can put it in the pails for you. And we've had a couple say, yep, that's fine. That's great. If you guys know where it's coming from and you feel comfortable about it, we'd absolutely do that. So, again, the few people that have bought from us, I had one guy, I think it was last year or year before, he wanted to negotiate with me. He's like, well, I might be buying a lot. And I'm like, well, So, I mean, I've been negotiating for 26 years with landscaping stuff, and you tend to learn a lot, right? I'm not the best salesman, but I will say I'm trying to always be honest with everybody about what it is that we can provide, what it is we're going to do. I don't want to, I like to be able to lay my head on the pillow and go to sleep knowing that I was honest and truthful with everybody about everything that we've done. But so the guy wanted to negotiate with me. He's like, well, I might be, buying this, that, and the other. And I'm like, look, I'm not going to negotiate on what you might be going to do. Now, if you wanted to sign a contract with me that says you will buy 1,000 pounds a year, okay, that's different. Maybe we can negotiate that. But I'm like, if you're not willing to sign a contract with me, I'm like, I'm not going to work off maybe coulda, shoulda, woulda, I'm like, that just doesn't work. So anyway, and I told him, I said, if I'm selling you 60-pound bucket for $6.50 a pound, and I'm like, I'm going to tell you right now, you as the person buying that bucket from me and retailing it in your area, you are making more money on that than I am producing it and selling it. I'm like, hands down. I'm telling you right now, that is a fact. And I'm like, don't get too greedy on what you're trying to do here. I'm like, because I know the market, the area you're in, what you're selling it for. And I'm like, that's great. But again, you're making more money than me on it. So, I'm not going to discount it out anymore. So, again, I think know your price. If you have excess or surplus that you can sell off some 5-gallon buckets and you can cash flow that, because again, maybe you have something coming up and you're like, yeah, I'll sell 2 buckets. That'll put a little cash in my pocket that I need for whatever it might be. Right. You have to buy more bottles or something, whatever, your deal is. But again, we want to keep a certain amount to ours. And who knows, maybe in the future, if we didn't produce as much as we wanted, maybe we wouldn't sell 5-gallon buckets, or maybe we'd sell less, depending on our retail market. Because if you want to put in a little bit more work, you can definitely retail it and make more money. So you're just basically paying for time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we've had people too ask us about, they get excited about selling and wanting to sell more and more and more, but they run out of honey every year. And so they sell out. And the one guy was like, yeah, I want to do like a BOGO thing, or, buy this and get the second one, this percentage off or something. I'm like, well, why would you do that? He's like, well, so I can sell more. I'm like, yeah, but you just told me you sell out every year before the season's over. I'm like, so why would you're just shortchanging yourself. I wouldn't discount your product if you're already selling out. Like your product is selling itself. It doesn't need to be discounted.
Mm-hmm.
Keith, do you want to respond to that queenless swarm situation going on in the comments?
Yeah, I was trying to talk to Jason and listen to what y'all were saying at the same time. Yeah, Jace, you're in a pickle. I mean, if you got a queenless bunch of bees in a tree, you're either going to have to get them out, get them in a box, and buy a queen, or you're going to have to get them out, get them in a box, you give them a frame of eggs or young larvae. I mean, either that or just leave them alone in the tree and see what they do. You said you smoked them out of the tree one time before when you saw that the queen had died. I don't know what you guys think. If it's a queenless swarm, it's kind of doomed at this point.
Mm-hmm. Get a frame of eggs from somebody, or get you a queen from somewhere.
You could always put that swarm. There is some value there. You could always put that swarm inside of a bunch of foundation. Let them draw you some combs until they die out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just saying, they'll build comb.
Yeah, you could combine them with that hive that you've got, but yeah, that's kind of a problem.
See, somebody asked a question.
Brent, we only discount 20% off our retail for the wholesale retailers in our area. Now, I would say this: we haven't had anybody. I'll say squat. Well, a couple people did, and I just tell them we're actually one of the bigger honey producers in our local area. there's only a couple other ones there. So I'm like,
they really didn't have a choice because nobody else had honey. So you can either take our price or you cannot have honey.
Well, and when I got there and dropped it off, the young man who had brought me in on it, he goes, well, he looks at the guy who I guess was maybe over him, looks at him and says, well, we only paid this much before. And I'm like, but your retailer is out. And he kind of looks at me and I'm like, supply and demand. And he's like, fair enough. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be mean or rude. I'm just bringing the reality of it is. I'm like, your supplier is out. I have it. I'm like, you want all your customers going somewhere else? You want to pay me a little more? And I'm like, throw a higher price on the jar if you want to make more money.
And they did.
And they did. So I was actually going to tell the guy who was selling to him before, it's like, hey, you may not want to lower your price because they're paying this, but do what you want, and they're moving a lot of it too.
Oh yeah.
So
we get somebody asked about buckets. We get our buckets from Menards. I don't know what mill did you say they are?
They're a 90 mil bucket. So I'll say one thing that's really important. 60 pounds of honey is a lot of money. Don't skimp on the bucket, because I'm telling you what, if you have 60 pounds of honey sitting on the floor, it ain't going to make you $1. So you could probably feed it back to the bees. It's about the best you can do, but make sure you have a really thick bucket. And I'll tell you, if you had a bucket for a few seasons, that'd be the bucket I'd get rid of. Again, doesn't pay to have a bucket of honey all over the floor. So
I was reading Bruce's comment that you had up there, and he said he doesn't discount or bargain, and that includes family and friends. Family and friends pay the same price as everybody else.
You could always say to them, like, hey,
unless they want to come over and help
get a
extract.
discount. I'm like, you sure can come on over and help me extract for a week and a half. And I'm like, I'll give you some honey to take home. Give you a case of it to take home. They usually just pay the full price.
That's funny.
Like, how much sweat I have to put into these bees?
Yeah, there's some online stuff that you can buy buckets and stuff through. We just found that for a local source that we can buy what we need as we need it.
And they're not badly priced.
No, they're actually a pretty good price. Depends on the lids that you want to buy. If you want to buy the lids that snap over and snap, that really snap on, that where you have to cut the tabs to get them off. Those are a really good lid. I'll say that.
Yeah.
They'll cost you $3 a piece just for that lid alone. One other thing that maybe is worth pointing out right here is when you stack honey, I think Bruce actually did this one time, went back and had a few of them stacked high. One ended up collapsing on another one. So that's why I say, and I think he had a high quality bucket. So don't get me wrong here. I'm not bashing on Bruce, and just sorry, Bruce, using that as an example here, but mistakes happen all the time with everybody. We
learn from yours.
We actually do a layer of buckets, and I have quarter inch sheets of like Luan, which is a thin plywood material that are cut as wide as the bucket, 4 foot long. So I lay 4 buckets out. I lay a sheet of that down. I do 4 more buckets. I lay the sheet down, and I do 4 more. Max I go is 3 high, but now you're kind of evenly spreading the weight out on the bucket rim at its strength, and not on the lid itself. So as plastic ages, it's going to get more brittle, and if it's gotten hot and cold, it may fatigue a little bit more too. So that's why I said, long term, I don't mind selling off some buckets because I'll just keep replacing them too. But I would also suggest building that into your cost too.
Where was it? That wasn't Tractor Supply. They had really cheap buckets last year, and we got a bunch of them. Oh yeah,
it was a farm store that were like $3 a piece.
But you had to watch because they had 70 mil and 90 mil buckets all mixed in together. So you had to look at like every single bucket.
I went through the stack and I'm like, that's a 70, no good. 90, okay, and I'm stacking them off. The one thing I'll just say too, and it's just my own little nuance, I don't like buckets that are colored. I like white buckets. Again, that really means nothing, but I like a white, definitely food grade, 90 mil bucket, and that part I'll stand
Well, and the
on.
nice thing about the Menards ones, they're not labeled at all. Like, it doesn't say Menards on them or anything like that either. They're just plain.
Mm-hmm.
The screw-on lids are nice, I think, to DC, but when you're buying 60 plus of them, it's just not economical because those screw-on lids are expensive.
Yeah, if you're going to be reusing them, you absolutely could use the screw-on lid.
But they are nice. We had a few of them when we first started.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on the 90 mil buckets. That's all I buy. I bought them from online from an outfit. I think it's called E-Package Supply, something like that. And the buckets are cheap, but they'll kill you on the shipping.
Yeah, that's what we found too.
Yeah. You know, you can buy their product through Amazon, and if you've got Prime, you can get the shipping a lot cheaper than you can going through them. So it's kind of screwy, but doable. But yeah, definitely 90 mil, no doubt. That's too much money to put in a cheap bucket.
Yeah.
I want to take this minute and thank Bruce for a tip that he gave a couple of weeks ago. Bruce, you talked about, I think you said it was Tim Ives who gave you this idea when adding honey supers, add a super of foundation and then drawn comb, and that can prevent the queen from going up and laying in your honey super, so you don't use a queen excluder. I didn't quite do that, but I did put 2 supers on, and the first super I put, and I do 8 frames, so the 4 middle frames were foundation, 2 drawn on the outside, and then drawn comb above it. And I found that to be just as effective to have that queen not go up and lay in there. So that was a good tip. Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate that.
We had to do that this year a little bit, Brian. We had gotten a bunch of new frames, some new acorn frames, and we wanted to get some of them drawn out. So, you know, anytime you're drawing comb, you're going to sacrifice something, right? You're going to sacrifice a little honey, and that's fine because I want more combs and newer combs. So we actually, in our 8 frame boxes, probably much like you, we run 7. So we had 4 drawn combs and we checkerboarded in 3 undrawn inside of each one of them. We were sending them out. So we had to pull a bunch of combs out, checkerboard a bunch of new in because we had like, I don't know how many 100 new frames. So that way we could kind of slowly but surely put some more into them and then keep some drawn comb in there. But I like the idea of putting on foundation and then putting another super on top of it with actual drawn comb to keep the queen down. That's always been my thing. I don't want the queen in my honey supers. I don't like the proteins left behind. I don't like the cocoons, and I don't like the dark nature of it. You have to patrol it more, for one. And 2, it's hard to see the color of the nectar going into it. That's been the main reason why I just run white foundations in our honey super, so I can see the color of the nectar much easier inside there, so that we can kind of separate things out, you know. But it's just those small little details that maybe you will think of, maybe you wouldn't think of, but it's something that we've utilized ourselves. Because like last year, we had a real seesaw nectar flow going on, and it was kind of a pain. So what I ended up doing was I was getting so frustrated. I'm like, why do you girls keep putting this in the brood nest? I'm like, put it upstairs, for crying out loud. Finally, I went in there and I pulled up all the things. I threw all the queen excluders off. I started setting them all down, and I'm like, now put the honey up there, for crying out loud, you know. And it kind of did work. It provoked them a little bit more because, you know, sometimes they'll view it as a little bit of a barrier. So I think what my plan is to do this year will be a little bit more work. But once they get that bottom box filled, I'm going to pick it up, throw it out, set it back down, and add comb to it, you know. And I might even try the offset method just a little bit to see if it dries down more efficiently. Helps to prevent that swarm impulse a little bit too that Bob Benny talks about, and gives them an upper entrance. So I might try that with a handful and see if it looks like overall it's a better yield for us. So all those little bitty small nuances that you may not think about.
Yeah, ripple effect. Thanks for the super chat. I do appreciate it. I got another question here. Now, that's something that I'm sure y'all deal with more so than me, because, you know, I'm spending like $100 for a whole season. I'm nice. Sure y'all's is probably just a little bit more than that.
Yes. I think the highest I've paid $550 for like an all weekend event. But
one weekend.
Yeah, so that's like a Saturday, Sunday. But here's my question to you, Keith. If you were to pay $550 for a spot at that event, what would you expect in sales? Like, what would you feel like you needed to walk away from that event to get your 550 in? Because that's an investment, and let's face it, that's overhead. You know, people have stores and they pay rent and they pay electricity and they pay internet for that building, and I look at my registration fee as kind of a replacement of overhead. But you've got to get that return, right? $550, that's an investment. What's the return that's going to be worth it? Now, your number is probably going to be different from mine, right? But you've got to decide on what your return is going to be that makes it worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Are y'all seeing similar payments, Tom and Melissa?
So we haven't had a market that expensive, but like Bryan said, would I spend $500? Yes, I would. If it gained me $5,000, I absolutely would. Mm-hmm. If it gained me $2,000, no. I mean, because that's 25%, and I just don't want to do that. You know, if we offer a 20% discount to a retailer, I don't have to be there. The honey is selling for me, and I don't have to do anything but go back there and collect the check and refill it at 20%. So I definitely wouldn't even want it. It would have to be less than me giving a 20% discount, I think, is what the reality for me it would be. I'm not saying that's right or wrong for anybody else, but for me, that's what I would want to see on it. So here's another,
I think
for
the
example,
most we paid is $175.
We had a market where there was one that was really expensive, and they wanted us there. They said, "Hey, we want you guys to be there." And I'm like, I talked to Melissa. I'm like, I don't know. This is
their
a
first
new market.
market.
I'm like, it was unproven. I'm like, I don't know. And
It's
I'm
in the
like,
middle
no.
of nowhere.
I'm like, more I thought about it, I slept on it. I'm like, no, I don't think I'm going to do it. I'm like, tell her now we're going to decline. Like, hey, we would definitely do it, but I'm like, just be honest with her. Tell her, say, hey, the fee's a little steep for an unproven market. In the story. And they actually came back and said, hey, if we discounted it by half, would you guys come? And I'm like, so we talked about it and said, you know what? Let's give it a try. And I said, yeah. I'm like, for that, I would try it. But I'm like, if it's a poor market, I'm like, I wouldn't even pay half next time. So I'm like, it just kind of depends, you know? You got to sometimes put yourself out there a little bit to try.
We went and it was a good market.
Yeah. So,
but the biggest fee that we paid, I can't even remember. It might have been $200 or $225 actually for that blues thing last year. The barbecue and blues that Andrew did.
Oh yeah, that sucked.
And it was all weekend. So it was Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. And I felt so bad because we were out of town. So Andrew had to do it. And, the boys get 25% of whatever they sell. That's our agreement with them. And it was in July. It was the hottest weekend of the year. It was absolutely horrible. Nobody showed up to the event because it was so insanely hot. We barely made back our booth fee, and we were there all weekend long. That was our worst market that we'd ever done.
I kind of felt bad for my son in a way, and I kind of wanted just to pay him outright for his time. And the more I thought about it, and everybody might have a different opinion of this, and I'm like, no, I'm going to let it ride as that. Because again, the reality of it is, I think it was a good lesson.
He did it Friday night.
Sometimes in business, you win big. Sometimes you just do okay. Sometimes you lose. So now, if it was one of those things where, moving forward, that would have been a losing proposition, I just would have paid him, but obviously we wouldn't have continued to keep doing it. But I don't know. I thought it was a good lesson. Sometimes you win big, sometimes you don't. So
I didn't make him go back Sunday. I went and did it Sunday. Yeah. I felt bad. It was so stupid, insanely. It was
I did not go.
Hot. He did not go.
I told Melissa, I'm like, I'm going to go to church. You have fun not making money.
On Sunday, though, a lot of the other vendors didn't even show up because Friday and Saturday were so bad and it was so hot. It was ridiculous. They're doing it again this year. They reduced their booth fee and they moved the date into May. So I'm still kind of undecided if I want to do it or not, though, just because it was so bad last year.
Yeah. I don't like to, if there's a market that's like 4 or 6 hours, okay, I'll struggle through it and I'll sit there and do it. If there's a lot of action, that's fine. But if it's a full on day and you have to get up you're there till late and you have to get up early the next morning, go out there, I'm telling you, there better be a big payout at the end for me. Otherwise I am out. If it's interrupting my sleep, Keith, it better be a good deal.
Okay.
You know, there's trade-offs. You can choose to do the farmers market route. You can choose to do like the big weekend festival route, and there's pros and cons to both. We do a couple of weekend festivals where we kill it. In fact, we've learned that for those big weekend festivals, it's been a good idea to get a 2-booth setup and have 2 people working there, because that has paid. Oh, it's more than paid for that second booth setup, because when you have a 1-booth setup, especially if it's an event like the Lavender Festival where other booths have a whole bunch of stuff just like you, if your booth is full, they're just going to move on to the next booth and buy from someone else. But if you have a double booth, you can fit so many more people in that space, and you can do so many more sales because of that. So for our big weekend festivals that are like, you go there, you set up Friday, the day before the event happens, and then you're there all day Saturday, all day Sunday. We'll do a double booth for those, and it's worth it. We make more money that way than just the single booth. The farmers market's reliable, though. You have that reliable customer base. For us, what we get is we're done by 1. Our market ends at 1. A lot of the weather that happens in the summertime are the evening thunderstorms. So when people are doing the art markets at night and they're getting that thunderstorm that rolls through, oftentimes we're already at home packing up for the market the next morning. But man, we've thought about, what if we just do like 2 festivals a month? And we can travel. We can do the local ones here. We can go to Steamboat and do a fun weekend festival there. We can travel Colorado and just do it that way as well. It's a trade-off for sure. There's pros and cons to both. There's a lot more risks when you're going to events that you don't know. Yeah. Russell made that one comment. He spent like $225 for a weekend event and made $1,000. I agree. That wouldn't be worth the time if that's the investment you're putting into it to get that much back. But sometimes you know what you're going to get out of it, and sometimes you don't. And there's man, the best you can do is always show up and be positive. And even if it's that crappy day that's 95 and everyone's melting, you know, if you're there and at least positive about it, people are going to remember that next time. It really makes a difference.
For sure.
Bring a couple battery operated fans.
We had a couple of fall markets, or getting closer to the holidays. And what was that one at the high school out there that we did? We got a pour.
Oh, the band.
It was one that was all the proceeds went toward a high school band. It was a market that was in St. Louis County.
Rockwood Summit.
Yeah, this place that they're called Rockwood Summit, and they have these every year. They've been doing it for a long time, and they have like, I don't even know how many vendors there. A couple hundred. A lot. So obviously, since we were new into it, we didn't get a prime space. They kind of hold those for that, and I get that, and I appreciate that. But the ladies that I found that were kind of in charge of it, we made friends. We made friends very quickly.
Tom Sostman his way.
I'm telling you what.
Into a better spot.
By the second day, we got put in a very poor spot. Which again, no fault to them. Some people were kind of ignorant and rude to them, and I just chatted with them. And I said, "Hey," what would it look like for me to get a prime spot? And she goes, "Well, we typically reserve those for whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "That's a great idea." And I'm like, I like how you did that. And I'm like, could a guy like me make a very nice donation to there, or put together some gift baskets or something like that and get a prime spot? Is that possible? And she's like, "Well, maybe." And I'm like, "What is it going to take?" And I'm like, happy to do something, happy to, you know.
And you were asking about next year.
I mean, yeah, but if they, you know, whatever. And so she's like, yeah, I realize these spots aren't that good. And I'm like, yeah, they're fairly poor, but I'm not complaining here. This is our first year to it. I get it. Other people deserve that spot that they've been here year after year. And I said, I would kind of want the same courtesy. And she goes, "Let me see what I can do for you." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, great." And I'm like, "Again, let me know what I can donate." I'm like, happy to put together some gift baskets to donate for that, for a raffle, for something else in the future for you guys, or maybe I'll write a check to you, you know, as an extra donation or something. I'm like, happy to do it, because there's a lot of people that go through this thing. I mean, a lot. I just knew I needed a better spot. And so by the end of that day, I think it was, she goes, I created a new spot for you. And I'm like, you're amazing. and then she goes, well, I also want to shop with you. And I'm like, get a bag. I'm like, let's put some things in a bag for you. And she's like, oh, no, I'll pay for it. I'm like, your money's not good here. I'm like, what would you like to leave with? So I gave both the ladies, I'm like, here's this. And I'm like, again, can I make a gift basket for you guys? I'm like, I'm still happy to do it. And I think we ended up doing something like that. But again, before that weekend was up, we had a pretty good spot that she just created out of the middle of nowhere.
On the main floor.
So I told her, I'm like, hey, interested next year. I'm like, she goes, where do you want to be? And I'm like, somewhere right on the floor. And I'm like, again, please tell me how I can help you guys out. So she's not going to forget me. And I'm telling you, when we go back there again this fall, we're going to be on the main floor. So again, if I can sell X amount of more, I've now made a donation to the kids, which is a win-win because I want to do it. Even if we did poorly, I still want to make a donation to them because again, I always try to help out. If the kids come and say, hey, we want a donation, I'm like, yep, absolutely going to do it. What can I do for you? You know, sometimes it's not just all about making money, making the biggest profits. Sometimes it's about helping the community too. So we've had those experiences before. So again, some of the other people that weren't quite so nice, they didn't get anywhere with the ladies, but you know, we were cordial to them and it worked out. So
DC, I got him a napkin to wipe it off.
Yeah. Well, did you use those dollar bills that we made to do that?
The dollar bills. I use the dollar bills.
Thanks, Mark, for the super chat. I really do appreciate that.
It's a great story that demonstrates that power of relationships in that farmers market kind of community. You know, you get to know the other vendors, you get to know the organizers, and you treat each other well, and it typically works out for you. So I think that's a great story.
That
power of politicking.
Yeah, a little politicking. The question DC had up there about do you think YouTube has helped your honey sales?
I mean, we don't ship, so it hasn't helped us. Maybe Bryan, has it helped yours?
Not YouTube. I'm not very good at YouTube. I would say social media has. Yeah, social media has. You know, we sell through Instagram and Facebook more than YouTube. But that's another con for glass. If you're going to ship honey, it's a whole lot easier to ship in plastic.
Yeah. Glass doesn't hang together very well.
Yeah,
I tried to ship with some glass quartz. That ended badly, but thankfully insurance paid for it.
Yeah.
So
I know Jan and Pastor Larry, they got our gift basket not this year but last year from the Hives for Heroes raffle that we did, and the bourbon honey busted. So she's like, so I had to ship her another, because that glass, it just does not, no matter how well you package it, you just never know.
Let me ask you guys a question. So we had a lady last year that something happened. She bought some glass or something, turned around or whatever. And it's like, boom. It just, not because of like a bag failure or something like that we did or whatever. And she looks at me and I'm like, come on over. I'm like, we'll give you another one. It's fine. Would most people handle it that way or not? I mean, again, it wasn't anything fault of our own. She just slipped out of her hand and it broke. And I'm like, and I think it actually wasn't a bag, but she actually dropped it or something, So again, that's one of those things where like, I think maybe if you're in a retail store and something breaks, you're going to probably eat the cost anyway, on it. I don't know. Is that something that seemed to be handled appropriatly, or would you be like, yeah, sorry,
Yeah, I would probably do that.
It's just good.
I'm going to give them a new jar. Yeah.
I mean, just trying to be.
You point and laugh first, and call her names.
You would? Yeah. So you after that, you handed away another jar and you completely lost any future sales. They're like, those people are ignorant.
But here's your honey.
Yeah. Well, it's been a couple of hours. I think this has been a really good chat. I've enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. I'd like to ask just a simple question of all of us to pass on to folks that might be thinking about getting into marketing their honey. What's a lesson learned? What is something a new beekeeper, I always tell them, don't spend a penny on bees before you you spend your money on education before you spend a penny on bees. On the marketing side of it, what's some words of wisdom that you would pass along? What do you think, Bryan?
Sell what you're passionate about. Don't make things that you don't care about. Like, I love how, like, honey's your jam, and you're good with that. Like, you could bend to your customers. You could kind of think about all the things you could do, but if you're not passionate about it, it's not going to show up at the market when you're trying to sell it. I think the best thing that you have is your passion for bees. So apply that to the products that you sell as well. I don't make beeswax wraps, and I'm pretty sure I could do really well with them with the customer base that we have. I just don't care. I don't care about that product, so I'm not going to be passionate about it. So it's not going to be what I talk to the customer. It's not going to be what lights me up when the customer asks about it in my booth. So that's my recommendation. Sell what you're passionate about.
Okay, that's a good one. What do you think, Tom and Melissa?
You want to go?
Go ahead. I want to see what you have to say.
That's a really good question. That's a tough one. I don't know.
I would say don't be afraid to ask for what your product is worth. I think a lot of people, when you first get into it, you just want to sell your honey and make money from it. You're afraid to ask for what it's actually worth. Don't be afraid to ask for what your product's worth. You know, the time, the effort, and the financial that you had to put into it. Like, you know, ask for what it's worth. Don't just feel like you have to give it away or give it away at such a cheap price because people are like, oh, really, that much? Well, yeah, this is a craft here. This is a lot of work that went into this little, you know, thing of honey here. So don't be afraid to ask for it. And then research the markets. Like, go visit the markets before you sign up for them. Go, you know, the Saturday before, go check it out. See how the crowds are. See how, you know, because it might be like excited to go to a market, but it might be like every other booth there is a discount booth. You know what I mean? Not like a quality products type thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We don't really like the trinkety kind of markets, the farmers markets, or the artisan type markets. Those would be the ones that we would like. I think you can yield a higher value for your product than otherwise that you might. But Melissa will tell you, if we get a little bit of a lull in one of the markets there, I start drifting around.
I kick him out of the booth.
And I'll start drifting around. I'll go to other honey vendors there. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And I'll be up there talking to them for trying to, you know, respect their whatever they do. And like, hey, I like your label. I like this. This is great. I like how you do this. And by the way, here's mom so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. If I can ever help you out with something, here's my card. You know, if you ever have a question or something that we can do for each other, whatever. I mean, just upfront and honest with them, say, hey, you know, this is who I am. This is what we do. And sometimes when there was a comment that was in here earlier, I thought was kind of interesting is if you have a bunch of other people at your market selling for much lower than you, maybe it just requires a conversation and be like, you know, and just kind of go over and ask questions about it. And be like, have you ever thought about raising your prices up? You know, or you know, just kind of educate them on it. How much time do you have in it to do X, Y, and Z? Does that cover your cost? Is that, you know, don't be afraid to ask more. Cause like, I think Ann earlier in the thing said, or somebody said in there, don't try to work your way to the bottom there on that. But I don't know. That was kind of one thing I was going to say is go, kind of network within the market itself or view that. But I think another thing that is important and that we had found a couple different small tips if you're going to go to a market and you want to move more product is, and Bryan and I have talked about this before, you don't have to have a spiel. You're like, here, try my product. Here it is right here. It's only $12 in your face. You know, it can just be, I may not even engage with the parent walking by. There's a kid down there and be like, cool hat, man. You know, just something simple like that. Not even trying to say, hey, you want to check out our honey? Be like, hey, love the hat. And then the mom will be like, or you start talking to the kid. I'm not even talking to the parents. I'm ignoring them, you know, and you're just like, he's like, oh yeah. I'm like, yeah, my son actually played hockey or, you know, blah, 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 you know, or a sport or something like that. Who do you play for? You know, just engage with them. And if you're engaged with the kid, I promise you, the parent will stop. They're not just going to keep walking down the thing. And then, and then you get asked him like, hey, with your parents' permission, I'll give you a sample of honey. And you kind of look at the parent and you're like, yeah, sure. You know, because I don't usually just hand off unless the parents approve of it, especially for a littler one. And then so basically the next thing I was going to say was get a sample in somebody's hand. Be like, oh, I don't eat honey. Be like, I'm like, you're obligated to buy nothing from my table. Okay. You don't have to spend $1 with me, but I'm like, can I change your mind? And then I'm like, just try this. And I've had so many people that said, I don't eat honey. I had it when I was a kid and I don't like it. They'll leave with a jar of honey. It's like, I would almost have rather have given it to them just to change their mind and then to make money off of it, just to say, hey, not all honey is created equal. This is a good product. Try it. So I would say, don't stare at your phone, engage people, don't sit down, stand up, and put a sample of honey in their hand. And I'm telling you, 85 to 90% of the time, it translates to dollar bills coming back. So I don't know. That's my thoughts.
Yeah.
Have plenty of ones.
Yeah. Oh, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. I think I think we touched on it earlier. Don't be afraid to show your passion about beekeeping customers. I think that sells a lot of honey for me. You know, once, like I said, that twinkle in a beekeeper's eye that they see when we start talking about what we do, I think it really strikes home with a lot of folks. I think don't be afraid to show that side of it. I think people like to see that. They don't see that at Walmart or Costco or buying honey on Amazon or maybe even from your competitor down the aisleway. So you can do that. I think we see a lot of that in these chats. So don't be afraid of it. It can be an ally.
Well, people like to know that you know what you're selling. You know all the details about what you're selling. I can't tell you, probably every single weekend that Andrew and Isaac do a market, we'll get at least one email or text from customers saying, oh, I spoke to your son. They were so great. They helped me. They answered all my questions. Like, they really appreciate people that are selling the honey that know what they're talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, I believe I'm going to end it here. A little bit over 2 hours. This might be my longest one tonight, but I think we've covered a lot of good ground. Like I said earlier, I've learned a lot. I'm pumped up now. I'm ready to do some markets. How about you, Bryan?
I'm ready. I just need to pack up the truck. I'm ready.
There we go. There we go. So all the folks in the chat, I really do appreciate y'all being with us tonight. If I missed anybody, I apologize, but thank you so much for being here. Join us next week, same time, same place. And to my guests, I appreciate you, Bryan, Melissa, and Tom, for y'all's great input. You know, a lot of knowledge here, a lot of practical experience doing this honey thing. So with that, we'll end it. Y'all have a great week and keep beekeeping fun. We will see you next week.
Night, everybody.
Have a good night.
Good night, all.